This is the homeownership trap. You just closed on your first house. Champagne's still cold. The realtor handed you the keys. Everyone's congratulating you. And you're standing in your empty living room thinking you finally made it. 6 months later, you're staring at a $4,000 HVAC repair bill, wondering how something you own can feel like it owns you instead. Welcome to the part of homeownership nobody mentions until you're already locked in. Today, we're running the numbers on what it actually costs to maintain the American dream, and I'm going to show you why millions of homeowners are technically asset-rich but functionally broke. Some of this data will explain that constant financial pressure you've been feeling. Other parts will make you question whether that house is building wealth or just bleeding you dry at a slower rate than rent would. My name is Drew. I decode the real economics of property ownership, the stuff that gets conveniently left out of the sales pitch. If you want housing decisions based on actual math instead of cultural mythology, subscribe. Like this if you've ever felt poorer after buying something that's supposed to make you richer. Let me start with a question. What do you think homeownership actually costs? Not the mortgage. Everyone knows about that. I'm talking about the real operating expense of keeping that asset functional. Most people have no idea. They've been sold this narrative that rent is wasted money while mortgage payments build equity. Nobody mentions the financial black hole that opens up the moment you become responsible for maintaining an entire structure. Here's why this matters more than you think. Your largest financial decision shouldn't be based on incomplete information. If you bought a business, you'd want to know the operating costs, right? You wouldn't just look at the purchase price and monthly loan payment. Real estate deserves the same analysis. And once you see the actual numbers, the math changes completely. Let's establish a baseline. What does it cost just to keep a house standing? Forget appreciation. That's house value going up over time. Forget equity building. That's slowly paying off your loan. I'm asking what you have to spend annually just to prevent your investment from falling apart. The number is $15,979. That's the national average for a single-family home every year. Broken down monthly, that's $1,331 in costs beyond whatever you're paying the bank. Now here's the composition. Maintenance and repairs account for $10,946 of that total. Homeowners insurance adds $2,003. Property taxes contribute another $3,030. Add them up, and you're pushing $16,000 annually in mandatory spending that has nothing to do with paying off your loan. Put differently, if you're making the median household income of roughly $75,000, you're spending over 21% of your gross earnings just on these hidden costs. That's before food, transportation, utilities, or saving anything for retirement. But national averages hide the real damage. Geographic location completely changes this equation. Hawaii homeowners face $34,573 in annual hidden costs. California is at $32,262. Massachusetts hits $29,277. These aren't outliers. They're entire states where homeownership costs more in maintenance, insurance, and taxes than many people's entire gross income. Even the cheap states aren't actually cheap. West Virginia, the absolute lowest in the country, still runs $12,579 annually. That's over $1,000 every month in costs that don't reduce your loan balance by a single dollar. Now we need to talk about trajectory, because these numbers aren't stable. Over the past year, these costs increased 4.7%. Household incomes grew 3.8%. You see the problem? Every year, the gap between what you earn and what homeownership costs gets wider. This isn't a temporary spike, it's a structural imbalance. Insurance deserves special attention because this is where homeowners are getting destroyed. Since early 2020, just 5 years, insurance premiums have climbed 48%. That's not inflation. That's a fundamental repricing of risk. Miami homeowners went from paying maybe $2,600 annually to $4,607. That's a 72% jump. Jacksonville, Tampa, Orlando, all seeing 68 to 70% increases. New Orleans got hit with 79%. Sacramento saw 59%. Atlanta jumped 58%. These aren't adjustments. These are market forces telling you that insuring homes is getting exponentially more expensive, and that cost gets passed directly to you. Let me frame this differently. If your insurance was $1,500 5 years ago, you're now paying $2,220 for identical coverage. That's an extra $720 annually, or $60 per month, for absolutely no additional benefit. You're paying more to maintain the same level of protection you had before. Maintenance represents the largest single category in these hidden costs, $8,808 per year on average. This covers HVAC systems that fail, roofs that leak, water heaters that die, foundation issues, electrical problems, plumbing disasters. Houses are machines. Machines require maintenance, and machines don't care about your budget when they break. Survey data shows 42% of homeowners, almost half, report that maintenance costs exceeded their expectations. They didn't fail to budget. The actual costs simply exceeded what they were told to expect. The industry systematically underestimates ongoing maintenance requirements. Here's where this becomes truly dangerous: the liquidity trap. You can own a $500,000 house and still be broke. This condition has a name: house rich, cash poor. Households aged 65 to 74 have a median liquid savings balance, checking and savings combined, of $29,000. Meanwhile, a new roof costs $15,000. A major medical event can hit $30,000 out of pocket even with insurance. Property tax reassessments can create bills that exceed your savings. When all your wealth is locked in an illiquid asset, meaning something you can't quickly convert to cash, you're vulnerable to any emergency that exceeds your liquid reserves. You can't pay hospital bills with square footage. You can't cover a tax bill by selling off the master bedroom. When you need cash immediately and your wealth is trapped in your house, you face three terrible options: go into debt, sell investments at a loss during the exact moment you need them, or sell your house under pressure and accept whatever offer you can get. This is the homeownership trap. Not that houses are bad investments, but that concentrating wealth in an illiquid, high-maintenance asset while maintaining inadequate liquid reserves creates financial fragility that looks like success on paper. Research confirms this mechanism. Studies show that home ownership reduces household economic mobility. Why? Because massive mortgage debt, combined with these hidden costs, prevents families from relocating for better opportunities, taking career risks, or making investments that might yield higher returns. The house becomes an anchor, not because of the mortgage alone, but because the total cost structure drains the flexibility needed to capitalize on opportunities. Let's crystallize this. The standard narrative says buying builds wealth while renting wastes money. But run the numbers honestly. If you're spending $1,331 monthly on hidden costs, plus, let's say, $2,000 on your mortgage, that's $3,331 total. Compare that to renting for $2,000, while investing the $1,331 difference. Over a decade at 7% returns, that invested difference becomes roughly $230,000 in liquid, accessible wealth. I'm not saying renting is always better. I'm saying the math isn't as obvious as the real estate industry wants you to believe. Here's your reality check. Home ownership costs over $16,000 annually beyond your mortgage. These costs rise faster than incomes. Insurance alone has jumped nearly 50% in 5 years. Half of all homeowners are shocked by how expensive maintenance actually is. And if you don't maintain substantial liquid reserves, you're one emergency away from financial crisis despite owning a valuable asset. Smart home ownership requires understanding total cost of ownership, not just monthly payments. It requires maintaining liquid reserves that account for the fact that houses break constantly. It requires honest math about whether your specific situation benefits from buying or whether you're just following cultural programming. Don't let your house become a financial prison. Run the numbers. Account for the real costs, maintain liquidity, make decisions based on economics, not identity. These numbers reveal the structure of the game. Whether you play it or not is your call.